Okay, shalom to all the viewers out there that have been following along, and thank you for tuning in again for another powerful and profound message. And today's episode number 2, part 1, and the topic is the Bantus, Negroes, or the lost tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel spoken of in the Bible are the Bantus of the world today. So that's what we're going to touch on in today's lesson. And the topic is going to be divided into 4 sections. So the section number 1 is going to break down the genealogy of Israel. So for those who are just coming to this knowledge, you're going to get the understanding of the 12 tribes of Israel. In section number 2, we're going to uncover the historical figure of the Israelites. We're going to go inside of the Bible and see what these people look like. In section number 3, very important, I'm going to explain the migration of the Israelites and the migration of the Bantu. And we're going to make a comparison. And what you're going to come to realize is that the so-called Bantu expansion is nothing else but the Israelite migration from Israel into Africa. And under the same section, we're going to talk about the various captivities that the Israelites have ever been into. And further down, I'm going to break down the first wave of migration as well as the second wave of migration of both Bantus and Israel. And last but not least, section number 4, we're going to uncover the true identity of the so-called Jews that are living in the land of Israel today, also known as the Ashkenazi Khazars. What you're going to come to realize in this video is that these people have nothing to do with the biblical Israelites. They are just imposters. So basically, those are the 4 points that we're going to touch on in today's lesson. Without further ado, let's get into it. So basically, this is the genealogy of the 12 tribes of Israel. I'll put it in the form of a diagram so we can go over very quickly, because there's a lot of verses that go into this. As also we cannot go over every single verses because it's time consuming. So you can read it for yourself. I'll put the verses under the name so you can read it for yourself. So basically, in the previous video, we talked about the other son of Noah after the flood, Ham, which is the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. So today's topic is going to be focused on the Negroes, which we're going to find out that are the Bantus, and also the 12 tribes of Israel, the same exact people. And the focus, they actually came through the loin of Shem, which is one of the 3 sons of Noah, the brother of Ham. And what I want you to understand about the diagram is the promise was only given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who came through the loin of Shem, basically. And even though Abraham had other sons, other children outside of Isaac, including Ishmael, who is the forefather of the Arabs, but the promise was only given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And down the line, Jacob, his name was changed to Israel, and he begot 12 sons, which became known as the nation of Israel. And initially, the kingdom of Israel was under the rulership of King David. It was only one nation. It was just a one nation, and it was passed down to Solomon. And shortly afterward, the kingdom got split. The nation of Israel got split into 2 kingdoms due to some political issues and also spiritual reasons. The nation got split. Hence, the house of Israel, which is composed of the 10 tribes, also known as the northern kingdom, and the house of Judah, also known as the southern kingdom, which is composed of half of the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Benjamin, and the tribe of Judah itself. And Samaria is actually the capital of the northern kingdom, or the house of Israel. And Jerusalem is the capital of the house of Judah, or the southern kingdom. So that next time when you see in the scriptures they mention Samaria, that's referring to the northern kingdom. Same thing with the southern kingdom. When they mention Jerusalem in a verse, so that means they are referring to the people of the tribe of Judah, or the southern kingdom. So I want you to grasp that concept, especially for the people who are coming to this knowledge. It's such a basic fundamental knowledge in the Bible, but I'm bringing this up for the people who are new to this. So I want you to grasp that concept. Samaria belongs to the house of Israel, and Jerusalem or Judea are the cities of the house of Judah. So I want you to grasp that concept as we progress through the lesson. So now we are already done with the first section, the genealogy of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now you got the understanding of it. So we're going to move on to the next session, which is the historical figure of the Israelite. We're going to go inside of the Bible and see what the Israelite looked like. Watch. So basically, in this passage over here in Genesis chapter 42, this is the story of Joseph, who was sold by his brother at an early age into slavery, and he ended up in Egypt as a governor. And one day there was a famine that happened in the land of Canaan, which is the land of Israel, and they went over to Egypt to fetch some food because of the famine. And when they got there, Joseph recognized his brothers, but his brothers couldn't recognize him. And common sense tells you that if Joseph was a white man, just like the Christian church says, he would have stood out among the Egyptians and his brothers could have recognized him. But that wasn't the case. His brother could have recognized him at first glance if he was a white man, but he wasn't a white man. He looked just like the Egyptian. And we already established the fact that Egypt was a black civilization in the first video. Egypt is hands down a black civilization back in the day. So common sense tells you that Joseph looks just like the Egyptians, and after so many years, he adopted, or he took on the customs and the style of the Egyptian, and he must have looked just like the Egyptians. That's why his brother couldn't recognize him. But he was just, as far as the skin complexion, he was just as black as the Egyptian. So that's the first indicator of who the Israelites must have looked like. So in this passage here, this is the story of Moses being mistaken for an Egyptian by the daughters of some high priest Midian, a region next to Egypt. Moses got mistaken for an Egyptian. The same thing that happened with Joseph, with his brothers. His brothers couldn't recognize him because they thought he was an Egyptian. Why? Because he looked just like the Egyptian. As far as the skin color, they were both black people. They're all black people, and the Hebrew Israelites that were into bondage in Egypt for more than 400 years. So Moses got mistaken for an Egyptian by these people. They thought that Moses was an Egyptian, but he was not. He was from the tribe of Levi, an Israelite. So that's another indicator of what the children of Israel must have looked like. And again, this is another story of Moses. And you know, Moses was chosen by the Most High God to go redeem the Israelites under the hand of Pharaoh in Egypt. The Most High had a plan to go to redeem the Israelites under the hand of Pharaoh through Moses. And he had to give him some sign in order to go to convince the people. And one of the signs was to put his hand into his bosom so that when he removes it, he would have turned into white as lepers. And common sense tells you that only a black person's hand would turn into white, because a white man's skin is already white. So it doesn't add up at all, because they said that Moses was a white man. The Christian church says that Moses was a white man, but it doesn't make sense at all. According to this passage, he must have been a black man for his hand to be turned into white. This is common sense. So that's another indicator of what the children of Israel must have looked like. Song of Solomon, chapter 1. I am dark. Do not look upon me because I am black. So this is to confirm what we just said about Joseph and Moses, who were being mistaken for the Egyptians. These people were black. This contradicts the concept of the Christian church saying that everybody in the Bible is white. This is wrong. The premise is a lie. The premise is built off of the sea. Christian church teaching that everybody in the Bible is white. The premise is already chopped down. The premise is a lie. So this is here, this passage, this is the is describing the son, the King Solomon, what it looks like. He said, "My beloved is radiant, and his head is the finest gold. His locks are wavy, black as a raven." But basically, I'm reading from the ESV version of the Bible. This is not the King James version. But when you read from the King James version, you're going to see that there's a deception that's going on over there. They smoothly injected the word white instead of radiant over there, and it contradicts itself, because at the bottom in the next verse it says that he has locks, which is the dreadlocks. The only people on earth that have dreadlocks, nappy hairs, is us, the Bantus, black people. No white people can have dreadlocks. Caucasian cannot have dreadlocks, because according to the Christian church, the King Solomon was a white man. But when you read from other verses, it says that my beloved is radiant. In the ESV version, it says radiant, and in the other scriptures, version of the Bible called the scriptures, it says dazzling, which means very attractive and handsome. That's what it means. And he had dreadlocks. The only people that have dreadlocks on earth is black people. So you see how they're deceiving the people with the King James version. And actually the King James version is the most mistranslated version of the Bible out there. And people think that the best version of the Bible is the King James version, which is not. That's why they're promoting the King James version as the standard. But when you do the research from the other verses of version of the Bible, you're gonna find out that the King James version is full of deception, mistranslation. I got another one for you. Job chapter 30 verse 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat. So you mean to tell me that these people were black? You mean to tell me that these people were actually black? The people of the Bible are black, and that the Bible is a black history. That's what you mean to tell me? And that the white people have nothing to do with that. So that's why the people that are hang on to the Bible are the black people, the Bantus. They hang on to the Bible more than everybody else. You talk about God to a white person, nah, he's gonna look at you crazy. Boom. There you go again with another Israelite being mistaken for an Egyptian. This is a Greek person having a conversation with a brother Paul, and he thought that the brother Paul was the Egyptians that drove 4,000 men into the wilderness and murdered them. He confused them with an Egyptian. Why? Because the brother Paul was just as black as the Egyptian, but he was an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin, from the southern kingdom in Jerusalem. Same thing with Moses and Joseph. The Bible is a black history, man. It has nothing to do with the white people. That's why we can't relate to it. That's why we're still hanging on to the Bible, because it was written by our people and it's written about our people. That's why we're still hanging on to the Bible. We still believe in the Messiah, even though he's a false Messiah. But you can feel like there's an affinity between you and this character. This is common sense. There's nothing personal. So now we already understand the idea behind the 12 tribes of Israel, the two kingdoms who got split, and we also established the fact that these people were black. No doubt about it. We're black people. So now what we're going to do is to go into the definition of Ham, who is the progenitor of the dark races but not the Negroes. So we're going to break down, we're going to find out exactly which set of black race on earth represent the Negroes. That's what we're going to find out before we delve into the migration. Negro. Around 1442, the Portuguese first arrived in southern Africa while trying to find a sea route to India. The term Negro, literally meaning black, was used by the Spanish and Portuguese as a simple description to refer to the Bantu people that they encountered. You see, now you get the clear understanding on the word Negro and Bantu. Those are the same exact thing. That's how they used to identify the Bantus that were in Africa. That was the beginning of the slave trade, when they came down there to look for the Bantus, to slave them. They identify them as, they refer to them as the Negroes, who were different from the other black races in Africa. And the other black races in Africa, who are the Hamites, they are the indigenous people of the continent before the Israelites or the Bantu migrated into Africa. That's essentially what happened. So the term Negroes stands for Bantu. In the Persian, the Greek captivities, and eventually the Roman captivity that happened during the time of Christ. During the time of Christ, the land of Israel was already under the rulership of the Romans. But the other captivity happened before him. And what I want you to understand is that the first wave of migration of the Israelite happened during the Assyrian captivities. And it was only the northern kingdom that went into that particular captivity. The southern kingdom was left in Israel, in Jerusalem. Only the northern tribe was carried away into Assyria. And after that, when you study the Bible, once they were gone, they never came back again. They never came back. They were actually lost. When you study the Bible, the 66 books of the Bible doesn't tell you exactly where they went, but they never came back. You never heard about them again in the Bible once they left. And it was only the tribe of Judah that was left, the southern kingdom that was left behind, all the way up during the time of Christ. It was only the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was not mentioned after that. So that's what we're going to find out. We're going to find out exactly where they went. But before that, we're going to go inside of the Bible and to back up everything that we said so far about the Assyrian captivities. Let's find out in the Bible. 2 Kings chapter 17 is telling you that the king of Assyria invaded the land and came to Samaria. You remember I talked to you a little earlier about this Samaria being the capital of the northern kingdom. He came and then he surrounded the city, and then eventually he captured the Israelite, the northern kingdom, and then he carried them away into Assyria, and he placed them by the river of Gozan in the cities of the Medes. And the Most High was very angry with Israel because of their transgression, and he removed them out of his sight, and none was left by the tribe of Judah only. Just like I said, only the southern kingdom was left alone in Israel. The northern kingdom was gone. Let's get some more. And the Lord rejected all the descendants of Israel, and then afflicted them and gave them into the hand of the plunderers until he had cast them out of his sight. And basically, when they went to exile into the land of Assyria, nobody was left in Samaria. So they placed other people in the land. Other people occupied the land of Samaria instead of the Israelite. You remember, Samaria is the capital of the house of Israel, the northern kingdom. So they brought in other people to occupy the land instead of the Israelites, because the Israelites were already carried away into Assyria. So now we're about to get into the deep water now. Ever since they were gone, they never came back. You never heard about them in the Bible. But we're going to find out exactly where they went, because it says that the Israelites were carried away into Assyria. And when you study the Bible, after that, it was only the tribe of Judah or the northern kingdom that was mentioned all throughout the Bible after the Assyrian captivities, all the way up till the time of Christ. So now we're going to find out exactly where they went. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go inside of the Apocrypha. You remember I told you that the Apocrypha is a set of books which are part of the Old Testament that were removed by the Christian church. And now you're going to understand why they removed these books. One of the main reasons why they removed the books, it was to actually hide the identity of the black people, of the Bantu in the Bible. That's why they removed them. So now let's go into the Apocrypha and find out exactly where the northern tribe ended up, where they ended up to. We're going to find out the location, because the Apocrypha is giving you the account of the final destination of the northern tribe, of the northern kingdom. The Apocrypha is giving the account of the final destination of these people. So now let's find out. 2nd Ezra chapter 13 verse 40 to 46. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land into the time of Hosea the king, whom Shalmaneser the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land. So this is the same exact thing that we just read in the 2nd King chapter 18, the same exact thing. They came into another land. The other land that is referring to is the cities of the Mede. Verse 41. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Azareth. Then they dwelt there until the latter time. So now let's break down these verses. We're going to have to break down the verses step by step. So now we already understand that he's talking about what happened in 2nd Kings chapter 18. They were carried away into Assyria during the time of Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria. And once they got there, they took upon themselves, they took the decision to leave the multitude of the heathen after they were placed in the cities of the Mede. They decided to leave the countries to go into a further Africa. In the northern part of Africa. That's where they went. Azareth. Begins from North Africa and expand through West Africa. What? Bantu migration begins from North Africa and expand through West Africa. What? Bantu migration begins from North Africa and expand through West Africa. What? Bantu immigration begins from North Africa and expand through West Africa. What? Bantu immigration begins from North Africa and expand through West Africa. What? Bantu immigration begins from North Africa and expand to West Africa. So you mean to tell me that the Israelites that migrated from Israel into Africa are the Bantus? Because this is clear. This is clear. This is talking about the same people that came from Israel into Africa. Those are the Bantus. The so-called Bantu expansion is the migration of Israel into Africa. So what the scholars are trying to convey is that the 10 tribes are still in Africa. They are in Africa, just like the scripture says. They're going to stay there until the latter time. And they're going to be uploading the law, the statutes, until the latter time, until the return of the Messiah. So now we're going to break down the verse 42 to see if these people are still keeping the law in the Bible or if they're not. Let's check out the customs of the Bantus. Let's go into the Bible. We're going to check out the customs of the Bantus of the world today to see those who are living in the land of Africa. We're going to see if it matches up perfectly with the statutes that are written in the Bible. We're going to check if the scripture is accurate, because the scripture said they're going to be dwelling there until the latter time, until the Messiah comes back, and they will be uploading the statutes. They will be keeping the law, the statutes, some of the statutes, until the latter time. So let's check the customs of the Bantus, and we're going to make a comparison with that of the Bible. Watch. Man, when you open up the Bible, especially the Old Testament, you're going to see the customs of the Bantu written all over. You're going to see the customs of the people of the Bantu written all over. The Bantus are practicing the statutes of the Most High without even knowing it, just like the scripture says in Esdras. And that's why they removed the books from the Bible, to hide the true identity of these people. He's talking about this passage here. He's talking about the slaughtering of animals, and this is how it's done in Africa. This is exactly how it's done in Africa. And if anybody who's living in Africa and who's watching this, then you know what I'm talking about. This is how it's done in Africa. The slaughtering of animal, goat, sheep, or roosters, or anything like that. That's how it's done in Africa. This is the Bantu. The Bantus are the Israelites. This is further proof that the Bantus are the Israelites. This is clear. This is in the Bible. This is what they're doing. If you are not living in Africa, just go down there to any Bantu nation and you're going to check out the custom. Just observe the custom and open up the Bible. In 2 days and you come back and you tell me. Boom. This is another one. This one is referring to the customs of the Bantus regarding the virgin. If a man defiles a virgin woman, and if they happen to be found by the parents, what's going to happen? The people that are living in Africa, the Bantu people, you already know the answer. You're going to be taken up to the chief of the neighborhood, and they're going to want to confront you. The parents are going to want to confront you. You're going to be paying for the blood that has been shed. And if her parents doesn't want you to be with her anymore, you're still going to pay for it. Either way, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay for the blood. And this is happening in Africa. This is in the Bible. We never knew this. Here's another one. This is the diary. I'm not going to dwell on this too long because this is something very obvious among the Bantu nation. The diary, which is the traditional marriage. The Bantus are well known for doing this. They're notorious for doing it. This is our culture. The tradition, the buying of a woman. The diary, which is a traditional marriage. That's in the Bible. Not the European, not the so-called European marriage that they impose on us. And you got to ask yourself, why don't they don't practice the diary? Just like I mentioned earlier, the white people, they cannot relate to the Bible because it doesn't. The Bible is not the white history; it's a black history. Just like you realizing right now, all the customs that are in the Bible, the black people, the Bantu in Africa, they're doing this. The diary is the traditional marriage. This is what is recognized by the Most High, not the so-called European marriage. Here's another customs of the Bantu people find in the Bible, the circumcision. And this is something, if you are somebody from Africa, then you know what I'm talking about. In Africa, if as a man, if you are not circumcised, you are not considered as a man. Let me say it again. If you are not circumcised, you are not considered as a man. That was the commandment that was given to Abraham by the Most High, and that will be an everlasting covenant. But you have other people outside of the Bantus that are also doing this, which are the Ishmaelite, the Arabs, the black Arabs. They're also doing this because the commandments was given during the time of Ishmael. At this time, he was also there, and he got circumcised as well. So that's why you're seeing the Muslim are doing this. The Muslims are doing this because Ishmael was over there, and Ishmael is the forefather of the Arabs. So I want to put this out real quick, but just to show you that this is one of the customs of the Bantus in the Bible, which are the Israelites. Let's get some more. So that next one passage over here is very deep. This is very interesting custom, and this is actually one of the things that my tribe in Africa, the tribe that I belong to, is actually doing it. They are practicing this custom to this day. This is the tribe in Africa called the Yakoma tribe in Central Africa. You can, if you meet anybody from Central Africa, and if they happen to be from this particular tribe, Yakoma tribe, then they're going to tell you. The Yakoma people are still practicing to this day, along with the other the custom that we just went over. This is a very interesting custom that are being kept by the people of the Most High, which are the Bantus in Africa. They're still doing this, and this is actually the patriarch Judah himself, who actually he gave his daughter-in-law to one of his other son, because the one that was married to his daughter-in-law passed away. So because they didn't have any child together, so he wanted his other sons to begot children on behalf of his deceased son. And this is what the people of the Yakoma people are doing this in Africa. So let's say, for example, I got a brother, a small, younger or elder brother, and then one day it just happened to pass away. And before I passed away, I didn't get the chance to have a child with my woman, with my wife. And what the people are going to do is, if they want to do this, they can do it. They're going to purify my wife, and they're going to hand her over to my younger or elder brother, so he can begot children of my behalf. The people, Yakoma people, are doing this. These are the people of God. These are the people of the Bible. They're doing it without even knowing that this is in the Bible. This passage over here is going into the hospitality. The Bantu people in Africa are well known for their hospitality towards strangers, and this is obviously why the Bantu country, most of the Bantu countries, are being abused by strangers, especially white people, because they abused of the generosity of the Bantu people. You wonder why the Bantu people are so welcoming? Because of what it's in their blood. This is what the Most High taught them. The Most High taught us to be very welcoming and to cultivate hospitality towards strangers. This is why we're so open to everybody else. And when we open ourselves up, the people are going to take advantage of our generosity. And this is exactly what is happening in Africa. The way that the African people, or the Bantu people, or the Israelites, or the way that they welcome the people that are dwelling in the land is different from the way that they have been welcomed in the other people's countries. It's different. The way that we welcome other people in our countries is different from the way they welcome us in their countries. They despise us when we come to the country. This is essentially what's going on with the Israelite hospitality. This is one of the customs of the people of God in the Bible. The Most High told us to be welcome, to be welcoming toward the strangers. On the basis of comparative studies between the dynastic tradition of the Oyo Yoruba and ancient Near Eastern history, the present article argues that Yoruba tradition of provenance claiming immigration from the Near East are basically correct. According to the Yoruba tradition, the ancestral Yoruba saw the Assyrian conquest of the Israelite kingdom from the 9th and the 8th centuries BC. From the perspective of the Israelites, after the fall of Samaria in 722 BC, they were deported to eastern Syria and adopted the ruling Assyrian kings as their own. The collapse of the Assyrian Empire is, however, mainly seen through the eyes of the Babylonian conquerors of Nineveh in 612 BC. This second shift of perspective reflects the disillusionment of the Israelites and Babylonian deportees from Syria, Palestine towards the Assyrian oppressors. After the defeat of the Egypto-Assyrian forces at Carchemish in Syria in 605 BC, numerous deportees followed the fleeing Egypto-Assyrian troops to the Nile Valley before continuing their migration to sub-Saharan Africa. See, the scholars, they've done the research on the Yoruba tribe, extensive research. They compare the traditions of the Yoruba tribes and they've matched them up with the biblical tradition of the Northern Kingdom. and they came to the conclusion that the migration of the Yoruba tribe is actually linked to the migration of the Israelite, of the northern tribes that went into the Assyrian captivities. So if you don't know anything about the Yoruba tribe is actually a Bantu tribe in Africa, specifically in Nigeria. And the scholars, they've done an extensive research on the Yoruba tribe, and they conclude that the Yoruba tribe migration is actually linked to the migration of the northern kingdom of Israel. Gadambes of Ghana have been described as descendants of the biblical Hebrew Israelite, whose ancestors once reigned supreme in the motherland. The ancestors of the Gadambe were ruled by Ulome, the high priesthood. Gadambe claim through their oral history that they are descendants of the ancient Hebrew Israelites and call themselves Yudafor, meaning there are Jews. The book discusses Gadambe customs and traditions, including the Homo Wo festival, circumcision and outdooring, sanctification, and the child after birth, all traditions of Hebraic origins. This history book traces the origin of Gadambe and their migration from ancient Israel to Ghana following the attack on Israel by the Assyrians about 700 years before Christ. There you go again. This is another Bantu tribe that reside in Ghana specifically. The scholars also, they've done the research on this tribe, the Gadambe tribe, and they came to the conclusion that the Gadambe is also linked. Their migration is also linked to the migration of Israel, the house of Israel, which which went into the Assyrian captivities before some 700 years ago before Christ. This is the same exact thing with the Yoruba tribe. So now we know for a fact that the Bantu migration is nothing else but just the migration of the Israelites from Israel into Africa. The first migration that happened before Christ is actually the migration of the northern kingdom of Israel after the Assyrian captivities all the way down to North Africa. We know that for a fact. And then also as prophesied in the book of Esdras, that the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes, is going to stay there until the latter time, until the Messiah comes back, and they will be uploading, they will be keeping the statues of the Most High until the latter time. And it's the same thing that's going on with the Bantus today. The Bantus are still keeping the statues of the Most High in the Bible. We already proved that, and now we know that for a fact.